Hi there, my name's Jodee and I'm an autistic speech and language therapist. I was diagnosed back in 2020 with autism after having self-diagnosed for about 8 years. So I wanted to talk to you today about what it means to be autistic. So I have some communication differences. I'm a very literal thinker, so if you talk to me using a metaphor, so for example, a therapist said to me recently to put one foot in the past and one foot in the present, and I literally had Mrs. Incredible with her stretchy legs stretching all the way from the past all the way into the present, and that's how my brain thinks about time. It is literal as that. It's the same with any other metaphors. I literally will understand it as the words describe it, and then it takes me a few seconds, sometimes 30 seconds, to figure out what that person's actually talking about, and then I have to reinterpret what they're actually saying, by which time they've gone on to another topic already. So I quite often need just that little bit longer time to process information, but partly just because I'm going round and round in circles trying to figure out what you've actually said. Another thing is facial expressions, tone of voice and body language. I'm always a little bit behind, so I can't quite integrate the information at the same time as you're speaking the words. So it just makes it really hard. Even though I can understand your body language, I can't understand it at the time that you're using it. So it ends up often with misunderstandings and just feeling like I've put my foot in it. Another thing that is really common to a lot of people who are autistic is sensory differences. So when I'm in the office, I can be really overwhelmed by things in my environment. So if there's lots of people in the office, it's noisy, or there's just lots of busyness, I get so distracted. I've started using noise cancelling earphones with a bit of music on it now, just to help block out. But actually sometimes I find that there's just too much sensory and background white noise and things like that most people won't even notice. Those things like the air conditioning or the noise coming in from an open window, most brains will filter those noises out, but I can't filter out any of those. Somebody could be talking right across the other side of the office in another part of the office that's like 15 meters away, and I can hear their conversation and I can't filter it out. It's really hard. That's why sometimes I actually get so overwhelmed that I just need a day working from home, so that I can control my environment a little bit better. Time-blindness is another thing that a lot of autistic people struggle with. I just get sometimes so stuck and engrossed in a task that I'm doing that I completely lose track of time. I'm not very aware of my body senses, so I won't even notice that I'm hungry or that I'm thirsty or that I need the toilet. And it could be like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I've had to start setting timers on my phone to help me remember to stop and eat something. Often I start to feel really hypersensitive to noise, and I feel myself starting to have a bit of a meltdown, or I start to go into a real panic mode. My heart rate rises, and that's when I realise, oh, actually it's because I'm hungry that I'm feeling this, and then I stop to eat. Another thing, I really need to know what is expected of me, so it's really important that people are very clear with instructions. So if I take on a new role, it's really important that that role is defined for me, because otherwise sometimes I can either be overwhelmed with trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing, or I can run away with a role about what I think it should be doing, but then that might be outside of what is actually expected of me. So as a result of all of the above, I actually need extra time to self-regulate, because I can get really overwhelmed sometime, and that can lead to panic attacks. These can happen in the office, they happen very regularly, and they have done my whole life. Working with a therapist has really helped me to understand what's going on in my body and the things that I'm feeling. And I've got some strategies in place now that's really helping me to manage those a little bit better. I've always really embraced being autistic, and I'm learning to celebrate the things that autism makes me really good at. For example, I have this monotropic brain. It's an ability to be able to focus so deeply on a topic that you just get completely lost in it, mesmerized even. I can do a deep dive and really get a grip and an understanding and a wide knowledge base in an area that really interests me. What's been helpful recently is being able to combine that with my work, and being able to then present some of those things that I've found back to my team to benefit all of us. I don't think there's many people who can actually honestly say that doing a deep dive literature search actually helps to regulate their nervous system. I can see patterns and details and things that often other people miss. I think some of that comes from my sensory differences. So when I'm working with people with learning disabilities and autism in my field of work, I'll often notice some of those things in the environment that other people miss, and it often really contributes to the case that we're working on, and it usually brings a lot of understanding and helps that person to feel less distressed in their situation. It also means that I can relate really easily to a lot of the service users that we work with. 1 in 7 of the population is neurodivergent anyway, but in learning disabilities, everybody's neurodivergent. So it means that I just can relate to people much more easily. I see everybody as equals, really. That does get me into trouble sometimes when I'm talking to somebody that's higher up the hierarchy, because I still see them as an individual, I still see them as an equal, and it's sometimes comes across as being presumptuous or rude when I overstep my hierarchy boundaries. So there you go, that's autism and me. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm also co-founder of a network for neurodivergent speech and language therapists, and you can follow some of that on Twitter as well. And I've also added a video clip here of one of my favourite videos about autism. It explains about monotropic brains and communication differences and sensory differences that you might find really interesting.